The federal government has unveiled its rules for cannabis edibles, vaping, and topical products today. While most of the rules haven't changed from a draft proposal released last year, the new rules will limit how cannabis can be advertised and also allow some multiple cannabis-infused offerings to be packaged together. Ottawa expects a limited amount of products to be available for sale by mid-December. For more on how the industry is reacting to these new rules, we're joined by Engel. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Organigram, and also David George Kosh, my colleague here at BNN Bloomberg. Greg, nice to see you. David, thanks for joining us too. Greg, let me get your reaction to the news today. Were there any surprises to you? Were you pleased with the news?
Yeah, certainly very much, as you commented, very much in line with what we've seen in the draft regulations. I think there were a couple key things that we saw that were positive moves. And again, in general, the regulations are extremely positive. So we're happy with what the draft looked like and now happy with the final regs. But one is that the forms that will be allowable in terms of the current medical products that are out there in the edible oil will not be required to have kind of a metered dose delivery system, which creates an advantage for, for medical patients that are currently using a product. So if it's under a 3% threshold, that product can continue to stay on the market. So that was going to create a bit of confusion for potentially those existing patients as they move to a new form. And I think the other is that we were hoping for and optimistic that we would see a change away from the 10 milligram limit in terms of packaging. So certainly we are very supportive of 10 milligrams on any individual edible serving, but we would like to see a multi-pack of 2 or 4. And we've certainly seen that successfully put out into the markets in states like Colorado. So those would be the two, but overall, again, very positive.
Okay. Do you think that there's going to be any real impact in eradicating the black market, given that these caps on these products will be limited to 10 milligrams apiece, and there'll be less if they're contained in a multi-pack? Because when you look at what's available in the black market, and it's similar to what we see in the States, those caps are higher. They're 100 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams. But do you think that that this cap will be enough for it to really take a dent to the illicit market?
Well, I think we have to look at the different categories, right? So we know vaporizable products, vape pens and closed loop systems are really 25-30% of the market from data that we've seen. And the products that will be available in that market are going to be identical to what's available in the United States. So we're competing kind of one-to-one with kind of those markets. And at the end of the day, the quality control and everything that will go into the systems, we ourselves, along with 4 other companies, announced a deal with PAX last week. And that's really exciting for us. I think when you look at edibles, we have seen some states go to this 10 milligram limit, right, on per serving size. And I think it's a positive to ensure overconsumption doesn't occur. Because on the flip side, in the illicit market, what we have heard stories about overconsumption, right? We know that was an issue when Colorado and other U.S. states started. So it's better to start low and go slow. And I think certainly people will become comfortable, especially we've seen such a significant number of kind of new and returning consumers coming into the cannabis marketplace.
What are you estimating it will be the true size of this market?
That's a pretty tough question. I mean, I think certainly some of the projections, we've seen, estimates from Deloitte and Echelon Partners and other companies. And I mean, talking about kind of, a couple of years out, we're talking $8 to $10 billion. And I think what's not being accounted for in a lot of those forecasts is really what does the CBD market look like? Because I think that's also very interesting. We're seeing, phenomenal growth happening in the CBD market in Europe, as well as in the United States now with the passing of the Farm Bill. So I think that's not necessarily accounted for in a lot of those projections because we don't see really CBD products in the illicit market to any significant degree. So we've seen overwhelming demand in the legal market in Canada for CBD. So that has to be factored in, and that market in and of itself could be as large or if not larger than the THC market going forward.
How will you capture that?
We're very focused on, so we've recently launched a CBD oil through the recreational channels in Canada. We've got agreement with a hemp company to access high CBD hemp from the Canadian market now that hemp production of CBD is allowed. And we continue to expand on that relationship. So we're looking to kind of not only bring in CBD products, which we've done already in the market today, but going forward to bring in different versions with edibles and vaporizer pens, et cetera. So to really go after and target that expanded CBD market in addition to THC.
Just coming back to the edibles side of things, I know that you have plans to launch the chocolate with cannabis infused in it. There's a lot of concerns, though, from the government side of things on how to make sure that these edible products aren't appealing to youth. How exactly are you able to market and brand these chocolate products without actually making them accessible or available to youth or have youth be interested in getting these products?
Yeah, it's one of the things that our marketing commercial team spent a lot of time talking about is, when you look at the various products, I mean, certainly the assumption is you would never launch products like Sour Cherry Blast or things like that had these names that would appeal to kids. So first of all, it starts with the brand name. What is the brand name?
Chocolate doesn't appeal?
No, I mean, but again, from a chocolate perspective,
Yeah.
It's about how are you packaging it, how are you showing the product. I mean, you're not going to have this, for example, our Edison Cannabis Company product, we're going to have Edison Bites. It's not going to be packaged in a manner that's going to appeal to children. It's going to be in a child-resistant package. So that in and of itself is prohibitive to kind of children consuming the product. You're not marketing, and it's one of the reasons there's so many restrictions on the marketing and promotion that happen. It's really focused on what you can do in the retail environment and not what happens outside the retail environment.
Isn't that also difficult to make it appealing to cannabis consumers and the consumers that may be interested in getting a cannabis product but are still unsure about entering the market?
Again, I think the focus has to be on the training and the work that the staff do in this retail environment. And we've already seen to date in the rec launch since last October, in the provinces where we have more retail stores, we're seeing much higher sales on a per capita basis, right? And I think people over time will become more comfortable with purchasing online, but it's, as a company at Organigram, we very much focus on what's that in-store experience. We partner with both public and private retailers to make sure they're educated so that they're in a position, and there is point of sale material allowed and educational material allowed in the store. And I think when you look at edibles, one of the provisions that has to be considered is what's the time and the onset of action, and making sure that consumers understand that. That's going to be a critical aspect. So there is going to be more education. So, typically the majority of edible products can take 60 to 90 minutes to actually start to have an effect. We've worked on a beverage technology that we're looking to find a beverage partner on that we believe, based on the formulation, would have an effect in 10 to 15 minutes. And we're also working potentially on some type of edible products that would have a shorter timeline to effect. So that's critical, right? Because if you think you're a consumer and you're purchasing a product that historically is not going to affect you to 69 minutes, if it's now going to affect you in 10 to 15 minutes, you need to know that, and in terms of what event or how you're using the product. So that's really important. And I think there's a lot more education around these products than we've seen to date, and that will be continued investment by us to the retail environment.
Do you think, though, that, that's such an important aspect to your point, the timing. Do you think that we know enough that there's not, obviously you hope that we do know enough and that there's not too much risk, but do you have that much confidence that we really do?
Well, I think two aspects to that. One is, the Canadian government, we know, and companies like ourselves have been very focused on understanding how the U.S. market is, developed and grown, and we've got a lot of education from that. So we can take comfort as Canadians that we have learned from the U.S. experience, which is why, to David's point, we're not seeing a 1,000 milligram chocolate bar on the market or a 100 milligram chocolate bar. We know that the risk of overconsumption is very high. And I think what still is going to happen is, we need to have that period between now and the launch to test our products on consumers. And there is an ability to do that. There's R&D licenses that are being issued, and companies are going to have a chance so that they can test not only taste, but they can test experience, and then they can give better guidance in terms of what the expectation is for consumers. So we've got a window between now and December when those products come to market, which is appropriate in terms of being able to prepare.
Not a lot of time.
And just one more from me, but we've been in a legal market now for about 8 months, and there's been some well-documented issues in terms of the supply chain issues and getting dried cannabis product out to market that we've been talking here on BNN for quite a while. That being said, how confident are you that this next generation of cannabis products will be easily available to the market, or do you expect any similar supply chain issues over the next year or so?
I think we are going to. I think the industry is going to face some challenges. There's no question, right? We went from packaging and producing at large scale products that we've been doing in the medical market already for a number of years. So getting that up to scale was a challenge, and certainly we're very happy that Organigram, we were able to kind of overcome those challenges quickly and move to automation on packaging. That's why we're focused on, launching initially with vaporizable products as our kind of core product, then onto chocolates and staging them in. And I think you're going to see other companies do that as well. You're not going to see companies come to the market with 40 different products. They're going to launch with the ones that they can supply on a consistent basis. And I think that's critical for the market and the consumer and the retailer, both public and private, to have that consistent supply in the market. But you will see it come in stages. I think this is going to be a more staged out launch from December on until probably the middle of next year.
Okay, we got to leave it there. Greg, nice to see you. Thank you very much. David, thank you.